Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, please be kind enough to smash the like button if you love me and subscribe if you're new. And please do have your say. I know you will, with or without my permission, and that's okay. I want you to. Welcome, a very warm welcome to Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we have got a hot mic topic for you. James Gunn is very excited about Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Clark Kent, and he said it will be part of the DC Elseworlds universe, but it has to be good. He'll greenlight it if it's good. We'll discuss that very shortly. Of course, I'm very triggered about this, and I'll tell you why very, very shortly. We've had an update by journalist Justin Kroll on the casting process for Superman in Superman Legacy. Well, it's not a real update because he's guesstimating the schedule and timetable. He believes that it could be announced at this year's in the summer, around July, San Diego Comic-Con. So, yes, the casting for Superman in Superman Legacy could be announced at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. That's exciting. Well, it's very, very big. It's huge because the announcement of a new Superman actor is always huge. We haven't had a new Superman announced since around 2011, 2012, when Henry Cavill was cast as Zack Snyder's Superman. And for me, that ended up very well. So hopefully James Gunn casts the right man, or should I say boy, because I think that's the direction we're going in. And at the end of the video, we will discuss Zack Snyder's SnyderCon 2, full circle, a really great weekend that also triggered a lot of people. So I think whoever went there, it was money well spent. But our main headline on this Monday here on the DC Universe Daily. James Gunn was asked by journalists during the press tour of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, or more like the premiere they all attended, about if he's excited about Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Superman movie, if it's still happening. He said, absolutely, it will be part of DC Elseworlds, but it has to be good. What's my opinion? Has this film got any chance of happening? Who knows? Who knows at this stage? James Gunn may be forced into this. Let me explain to you the structure at DC at WB. Yes, it's now called Warner Brothers Discovery, but it's still owned by AT&T. And Toby Emmerich, the former, CEO of Warner Brothers Pictures, is there still in the background, right? He's the one who put the J.J. Abrams deal together. J.J. Abrams was the one who greenlit and decided to bring, instead of writing and directing his own dream Superman project, he decided to bring in social commentator Ta-Nehisi Coates to write a Black Clark Kent movie set in the 90s. So James Gunn could be stuck with this situation. James Gunn isn't completely in control of these decisions, and that's the problem. But he won't greenlight a Man of Steel 2 for DC Elseworlds, which he could absolutely do, which doesn't interfere with anything he's planning. He won't restore the Snyderverse. No, he hasn't announced any new fresh projects for DC Elseworlds because basically it's a dumping ground for the other stuff that's not going to be part of his new universe, that was never meant to be part of the new DCEU. But basically DC Universe is just a rebranded DCEU, as we already know. And so, look, what's he going to say? He's got a microphone shoved in his face. It's like the Ezra Miller question. Will he continue on? We'll have to wait and see. No chance, Charlie, right? But he can't say that because they're promoting him as a great actor. And, sorry, did I say him? Them, right? Always got to get those pronouns right, yeah? Or we could be in trouble. But if you throttle a young woman, if you break into someone's house, that's perfectly cool, but you must get their pronouns right, okay? You get me? Anyway, so yes, absolutely triggered about this. All the stuff he said about a new universe, and we're still talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Superman. I have no issue with a black Superman. Black President Superman who's in the comics, yes, please. Val Zod, another awesome version of Superman who happens to be black, yes, please. But a race swapped, baited and switched, black Clark Kent, no thank you. Not even most black people want this. But Hollywood know what's best for us, don't they? They're just a bunch of extremists, and J.J. Abrams is the worst thing that could have happened to DC. And one good thing that I do agree with Zaslav about, that he hasn't allowed Abrams to keep his claws in DC. He was going to run the Justice League Dark thing. Now, there's a bit of a power struggle because Abrams is trying to get the Keanu Constantine movie, the Constantine sequel, made because he's got his claws in Justice League Dark. I'm in support of Keanu's sequel, but I really, in DC Elseworlds, because I think you can have a main Justice League Dark in DC Universe, right? But I'm not in support of Abrams and his people and his extremists being involved with that sequel. Now, here's the thing for me. I was in full support when Abrams did this deal with WB for him to write and direct the Superman movie. I genuinely think, unlike others, that Abrams is a very talented writer-director, and I think, losing my voice here, but I think he did a solid job with The Force Awakens. I love Star Trek 2009. I love Alias. I love Lost. I think the man's a bit of a genius in the right circumstances. But bringing in Ta-Nehisi Coates, nobody knew who was going to direct this movie. It was clearly going to be African-American woman of colour, of course. It was going to be a very, very woke movie. I can guarantee you about that. Wouldn't surprise me if Ava DuVernay, a woman who couldn't direct her way out of fucking traffic, directing that black Superman movie. In fact, it could still be her because, as James Gunn has said, there's every possibility that that movie could happen over at the dumping ground, DC Elseworlds. So yes, I'm absolutely triggered about that. So James Gunn's response shows you that he's well in support of a race-swapped, baited and switched black Clark Kent, right? He's in favour of that. He's fine with that. It's not going to work out for you, James. The Snyderverse stands are already gunning for you. Your removal of Henry Cavill and your refusal to even put him over and Zack over to DC Elseworlds is, really got you in hot water with the fans, and you're losing the war against the Snyder fans. And the only people you've got on your side right now are people like Mama's Geeky and Matt Ramos, who are paid up shills anyway. So they're not very good defenders because they're supposed to serve their subscribers, the movie fans, the TV fans. But no, they serve trillion-dollar conglomerate companies. That's the only people they serve. This idea of having a black Clark Kent was a dumb idea in the fucking first place. Of course I'll watch it. It's a Superman movie. It's a DC movie. I want to see if it's any fucking good. I still won't agree with the fact that they've race-bent Clark Kent. This doesn't make any fucking sense. You're going to have a Clark Kent in DC Universe, James, right? And then you're going to have a black Clark Kent in DC Elseworlds, or should I say the dumping ground, right? It's where the Batman universe is. It's where the Joker universe is. Now, these are great. The first movies in these universes are great. I love them. I'm not making fun of those films, but it is a dumping ground. We all know that. Where's the original DC Elseworlds project? Well, it's too soon, Mick. It's not too soon for him to announce umpteen Gods and Monsters projects for his Gods and Monsters slate. Where's the slate for DC Elseworlds? There isn't one because it's a fucking dumping ground. This is the problem with the industry. This is an industry being mocked by its own consumer. I remember working for the Co-op. We were famous for being out of stock of the most important things. Mick, you got any milk? Sorry, mate, not today. You've never got any stock. I know, it's shit in it. And we used to laugh at the company for never having stock. When your consumer knows you're not good at what you do, that you don't have the stock on the shelves, that you don't make good entertainment, that you're a bunch of extremists, right? You're creatively bankrupt. And when your audience is going on the internet mocking you, your customer is mocking you for every fucking decision, like I'm doing all day on Twitter, when you're being mocked and that mockery is pure factual, you are in trouble. Because once the consumer knows you are incompetent, you are in trouble. And James Gunn publicly saying there's every chance of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Clark Kent happening as long as it's great, that's not a good thing. Do I think this film has any chance of being made? Well, let's look at when this movie was announced. This movie was announced, what, in 2019? 2020? It's 3 or 4 years. Where is it? I don't think this movie has any chance of being made. And the reason he says, yeah, definitely, as long as it's great, because he knows it's not going to be great, and he's going to reject it. There's two James Gunns. There's the James Gunn who speaks publicly on social media and at events. And there's the other ruthless James Gunn who actually does want to do a good job. I genuinely believe that. But obviously I am triggered by the removal of Cavill. I kind of understand it to a point because he wants to start again. I still think Cavill, if DC Elseworlds is this dumping ground, that would have been a great dumping ground for Man of Steel 2. Because the Batman gets a sequel, the Joker gets a sequel, who saw that coming? But Henry Cavill doesn't get a sequel. And it's utterly problematic that Cavill is out on his ear while criminal Ezra Miller, and that's a factual statement, gets to keep their job because they need this movie to make money. If Ezra Miller was to be part of the new universe while Henry Cavill isn't, if I was Henry Cavill, I would sue them for every fucking penny they've got. So yes, there is every chance, according to James Gunn, that the Black Clark Kent movie written by Ta-Nehisi Coates could happen as long as it's great. So let's give you a casting update for Superman Legacy and the casting for the brand new Superman, yeah? Who knows what it's going to be at this point? So Justin Kroll, a very reliable journalist who knows what's going on. You know, people like Jeff Snyder who seem to know what's going on. I don't particularly like Snyder. I think he's an arrogant sack of shit. And he comes from, I think he comes from the old schmoll down from Collider. All very arrogant men who think they're that and they talk down to the fans and they think they know it all, blah, blah, blah. But, I'd say that Kroll knows his stuff. So he's put out a timetable for what he thinks is going to happen with the casting for Superman in Superman Legacy. Because James Gunn's just coming off of the promotional tour of Guardians 3, he hasn't had a chance with Peter Safran to look at all the audition tapes. So what they're doing here is a widespread audition process. They're not going to handpick an actor. James Gunn is not going to pick one of his friend's sons to play this role. Although, who knows, in this game, and that's exploded on Twitter as well. You've got all these people defending James Gunn for casting his wife, and there's other people putting James Gunn down for casting his wife. I've said it before. If I was married, my wife would get work. My brother would get work. Hollywood. The reason Hollywood are the reason he gets called out for this, right? Because he's removed Henry Cavill, right? But he's using his wife. The reason they get called out for this kind of casting is because they talk about, representation and inclusion, and they only cast their own people, or they only cast black people with Hollywood DNA, or Asian people with Hollywood DNA. That ain't real inclusion and representation. This is why they get called out. But anyway, so I think this audition process is a wide audition process. The audition process for Superman and Superman the movie, Dick Donner's movie, was wide. He was an unknown. He wasn't hand-picked. In fact, one of the casting directors had to keep on putting his file-on picture on top because they wanted a name. And like the casting for Superman Returns, that was a wide casting call as well that Bryan Singer did. And it's interesting with Zack Snyder. Henry Cavill had auditioned on multiple occasions to play Superman. I don't think that was as wide-ranging. Now, I think originally he was going for the other guy who he cast later on as Deathstroke in the DCEU. Joe Manganiello was Zack Snyder's original choice to play Superman. I still don't see it. That's an insane choice. I mean, even Zack, who's the biggest hot taker and loves to trigger real DC fans, I can't see how Joe Manganiello would have made, a good Superman. It would have been very, very interesting. Would he have had a shave? Because he always seems to have facial hair. Anyway, he couldn't do it because he was stuck with True Blood. A bit like Tom Selleck playing Indiana Jones. Couldn't do it because he was tied in a contract to play Magnum. And so Henry Cavill, a brilliant choice, was cast as the character. But I think that was a small casting call for Zack Snyder's Superman. But this is a wide-ranging audition call. All the tapes are being sent to Warner Brothers Pictures, DC Studios, James Gunn, Peter Safran, and it's going to be a long process to cast this role. Because, make no mistake, casting Superman is a big deal. Because Superman, like James Bond, is a cultural icon. And even if people don't go and watch Superman Legacy, they care about who's cast as Superman. And James Gunn understands the responsibility he's got here. We don't want no black Clark Kent. We don't want no Latino Clark Kent. We don't want no Asian Clark Kent. Now, if you want to do an Elseworlds, Latino Clark Kent, no, let me rephrase that. If you want to do an original Asian version of Superman, fine with that over at DC Elseworlds. Shame it's a dumping ground so that won't happen. But Clark Kent is a white guy, right? Simple as that. Clark Kent has always been white. That's the end of the story. If you want to have other cultural actors playing a version of Superman, like Val Zod, like President Superman, or an original version you create with another name, that's absolutely fine, but Clark Kent and Kal-El is white. It's as simple as that. It really isn't that difficult. Nobody from any cultures wants Clark Kent race bent. It's as simple as that. So this is a huge responsibility for James Gunn to get this casting right. Unfortunately, he's got the ghost of Henry Cavill looming over his head. So get this casting wrong, he's fucked. So Justin Kroll believes by San Diego Comic-Con, we could know who the brand new Superman is. Now that's in July, so where are we now? We're on, happy May Day. It's May the 1st, by the way, so April, May, June, a couple of months. We've only got a couple of months to wait. So that would say they're going to have to do a lot of hard work because there's a lot of tapes, audition tapes to look at. Now what they do is they get their people to kind of reduce the amount of audition tapes they have to see. There'll be people that they favour. So we should get an announcement around July. We'll probably get the announcement. The actor will probably be at San Diego Comic-Con. That's very James Gunn. That's very big. It's lots of hype. This is what he wants for the new universe. And there will be lots of hype around James Gunn's new DC Studios and DC Universe. There has to be to get people interested. What kind of actor is James Gunn looking for? So let's forget colour, cultural heritage and shit like that. I think it's pretty obvious that he's looking for a really young guy to play him because we're looking for him to be played as Superman in this universe for the next decade. So you're probably at least looking at, I'd say, probably you could go 25 and in 10 years he could be 35. That's fine. I think no older than that. I think we are looking at the average of around 20 to 23, and I've said that before. But don't write off the opportunity that the guy playing Superman or Superboy, because it might not be Superman, he's casting, right? That's an interesting thing. And I've always had this theory, why is it called Legacy? We spoke about the Superman No Way Home scenario and the possibility that James is doing that, and Cavill will play Superman in the movie. Brandon Routh will play Superman in the movie. Maybe we'll get a situation where even Nicolas Cage plays Superman in that movie and introducing a new Superboy, right? They could do that. Now, that would be more like, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse rather than Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think that's an interesting idea. So I think, don't be surprised if we get like an 18, 19-year-old, even a 20-year-old cast in this role. Because it may not necessarily be Superman they're casting. It could be a Superboy. That could be the future of this universe. Because I think nothing's nailed on. Nothing's certain. Because there really isn't a defined plan. I think James Gunn has some kind of idea. He has to. According to him, he's written a Superman legacy script. So there's something going on. There's a deeper meaning of the word legacy. And when it was first announced, I was kind of underwhelmed by that title. But I think about things really deeply. I think it's important to look at things really deeply in this game, because even though this isn't a successful channel and only a few of you watch this video and support my content, and I appreciate every single one of you, by the way, just because there's just a few people watching this channel, it doesn't make you any less worthy. Thank you for the support. But it's my responsibility to give you honesty and integrity. That's why I spoiled elements of the Flash movie yesterday. I really genuinely didn't want to do that. But I've been annoyed all week about people lying about this movie. Now, if there's a great movie and people lie about it and tell me, I'll make it shit, I have to come on and tell you that that's not true. Like I did with Joker, when they were saying it was a shit, dangerous movie, I told you the truth. And it's the same with the Flash movie, but in the opposite direction. They've been telling you this is the best movie since sliced bread. So I had to spoil the movie and tell you what my issues are with it. It's a calamity. Critics will destroy it. Some of you don't want to accept that, but wait and see. And so integrity is very, very important. And so I do feel that the Superman legacy situation is going to look at the legacy of Superman in live action and maybe even in comics. I think he's going to do a whole examination on this character's history, and I think this is what he's attempting to do. Now, I was reacting the other day about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and what it meant for James Gunn's DC and Superman Legacy, and I was very enthused and very happy with that film, and I felt this was a good sign of things to come. I do. Look, there are issues with James Gunn being involved, but I also think he's a bright writer, director. He's already proven that with every Guardians movie, even Guardians 2, the one people don't like. And people are complaining that Guardians Volume 3 is too dark. That's a good thing, everyone, because it means we're definitely going to get a lot of depth with Superman Legacy. And by the way, let's not forget about Peacemaker. That was so dark, had lots of depth. Yeah, it had the silly comedy as usual, and the dick jokes and all that. But beyond that, we got a really deep story for Peacemaker, continuing straight from the Suicide Squad. I really liked what he did with the Suicide Squad. I liked even more what he did with Peacemaker. So, look, I'm not like one of these Snyder stans who's on Twitter all day attacking James Gunn. But sometimes I like to wind people up, and it's fun. Especially these days. It's just too fucking easy on social media to get people worked up. It's fun to get a reaction. When I was younger, I used to love winding up my younger brother because he used to get angry. It's fun. It's funny. It's not a very nice thing to do. I'm not a very nice person. I do love my brother, by the way. We do have a much better relationship these days, but I am a bit of a ball breaker, and I love being a ball breaker. But ultimately, I'm a DC fan. Ultimately, I don't have a director. I love Snyder. I think Gunn has done a good job with Guardians and, the 2 DC projects he's done this far. I don't have a flag on a mast here. I want to see great DC. And that's the reason I had to come out and speak about The Flash, because it's not one of the best DC films made. In my lifetime, these are the DC films I herald up here. Are you ready? And it isn't rocket science, and it shouldn't be controversial to any fucking body. Superman the movie is up there, right? Superman 2's great. I don't know if I'd put it up there, but Superman 2's great. But for me, it's Superman the movie, Batman 89, the Dark Knight trilogy, especially Batman Begins, which is my favourite, Joker, the Batman, the Snyderverse trilogy, For me, they are unique, brilliant, artistic movies. They are the very best. But there's other movies I love, and some of the best I've seen as well. But for me, those movies are up there. And the fucking Flash movie, let's be honest, it doesn't matter how much of a shill and how desperate as a DC fan you want the Flash movie to be that movie, it's not. So in yesterday's video, I tried to explain to you why it wasn't what they're saying it is. So we should have a Superman Legacy casting announcement for Superman in July's San Diego Comic-Con, and that's very, very exciting, everyone, and I can't wait to find out what this is. And I do think there's a lot of potential in this movie. Just because I call out James Gunn for saying he's excited about a Black Clark Kent movie, it doesn't mean that I don't think that Superman Legacy isn't exciting, but we'll see what he's going to do. I'm very split on all of this, and I find it really hard to trust any of these people. Wow, what a busy week to be a DC fan. We had CinemaCon and we had the whole Flash thing, and we covered it all here on Movies TV Mad. And then this weekend, which is just finished, we've had Full Circle, SnyderCon 2, Zack Snyder's been doing Q&As on Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, and finally, when I was asleep in bed, I wasn't watching any of this stuff. I'll have to watch the Q&A for the Snyder Cut a little bit later on. It was just, basically, the timings just weren't right for me. But a great weekend. You had a Q&A for the Snyder Cut, BVS, and MOS. I caught the MOS one and the BVS one. So it's been a fabulous weekend if you're a Snyder stan. Now, I was concerned about him calling it Full Circle, and I was worried that he'd start lecturing his fans at one of the Q&As, maybe the Snyder Cut when it was all going to end, and say it's time to move on. I was very worried he was going to go down this direction. But thankfully, Zack is still stirring the narrative. He basically didn't, someone asked him about a Jeff Johns graphic novel, and one of the guys walked out. It was hilarious. We don't talk about that guy. So that was brilliant. He's winding up real DC fans by saying the gods of the Amazon were actually going to originate by being Kryptonians or something along those lines. Right, I need to explain to you real DC fans who are really upset and saying, I never want Snyder anywhere near DC again. He's talking about concepts that never happened, right? All of us writers and our storytellers, when we're putting pen to paper or hands-on typewriter like it is these days, we have ideas. We write our stories and we think, no, shit, we can't do that. We'd like to do that, but we can't do it because we'd be fucking destroyed and our reputations would be toast, right? Since I'm 21, I've been writing about 5 or 6 stories that are part of some multiversal franchise that I've been planning for a very long time. There's Trapped, which is set in the UK in the town of Redsford, the fictional town of Redsford. It's July, it's snowing, I know, weird, right? All of a sudden, metal-looking walls rise up from nowhere, blocking the exits and entrances of the town. Everyone's trapped in the town of Redsford. Then there's Alone. Guy wakes up, everyone in the world, every human person has vanished. He's the only person. All he can hear is banging underground like that, and he slowly goes insane. Then there's Finding Claire, a story of a guy looking for his missing girlfriend. He befriends a homeless girl and they travel around the UK looking for his girlfriend Claire, who ends up being an alien. Interesting story. Now, and then there's Gender Wars, which is set in a post-apocalyptic world where men and boys are held in concentration camps and women run the world. You can understand where I'm going with that one. And basically the idea of these stories is they're all part of a multiversal story. So any actor in my first story, Trapped, would basically come over to the other stories. But basically the same actors would be in every story I did, but they'd be playing different characters. The idea is that it's a multiverse. So a person who looks like one person will be the same actor, but will be playing a different character. So that will be my idea. So I've come up with a lot of wild ideas there. And some of the ideas I've put to bed. Now, I haven't pitched these ideas yet because, as I say, I've been working on this since I was 2021. So there's a long way to go. It's a plan. Maybe before I die, I may be able to start pitching it. But it's a very exciting, ambitious idea. The reason I talk about that is because everyone has concepts that they say, no, we can't use. So Zach saying the gods are Kryptonian never got used. It was never going to get used. People losing their shit about Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane, it was an idea that was never going to get used. Relax. It's not actually up there in the movies. Now, personally, I'm someone who doesn't mind canon being broken if the ideas are interesting to me. Lois and Bruce in a kind of Pearl Harbor kind of story while Superman's supposed to be dead, having an affair or like a love story is an interesting idea. It doesn't offend me. The gods being Kryptonian doesn't offend me. But unfortunately, nerds and geeks are very stringent with their canon and they don't like it. And Zach has very, very wild ideas. Personally, I think Zach thinks outside the box. And I love storytellers who think outside the box. My number one favourite storyteller, George Lucas, created Star Wars by thinking outside the box. But basically, I think Full Circle was a very successful SnyderCon. I thought it was great for the Snyder Cut. They had Ray Fisher, Ben Affleck, and lots of other people. They had people asking them questions. It was brilliant. It was exciting. And Zack Snyder encouraging people not to give up the fight to sell Snyderverse maybe to Netflix or even have it restored on WB. So the fight to restore the Snyderverse goes on. Whether you feel that's a realistic battle or an unrealistic battle or a worthwhile battle or a non-worthwhile battle, that doesn't matter. As long as these Snyder fans don't attack what others love in DC, it's fine. Stick to what you love, stick to your corners, play your game, do your thing, love what you love, and as far as I'm concerned, I'll support you. I always support Sell Snyderverse to Netflix. I always support Zack Snyder. But ultimately, I'm an all-round DC fan. I want great DC content. Let's hope the future of DC is bright. This has been Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, smash the like button if you love me, subscribe if you're new, please have your say. I will be back tomorrow with Tuesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. You're not getting rid of me that easy. If you haven't had enough of me yet, follow me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad, where I post a hell of a lot, mock a lot of famous people and non-famous people as well. I really am not biased. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.